What if Josslyn isn't just chasing a mystery, but walking straight into a controlled illusion? And what if the truth about Anna isn't being hidden to protect her, but to silence her? I keep thinking there's more going on here than anyone is willing to admit. I don't think this storyline is really about whether Faison is alive or dead. That feels like the surface level distraction. What stands out to me is how Josslyn's investigation keeps leading her not to answers, but to resistance. And in storytelling, that kind of resistance usually signals something much bigger being hidden. Let's start with Valentine. Josslyn approaching Valentine makes perfect sense on paper. If anyone might know something about Faison, it's him. But the fact that she gets nothing meaningful from that conversation, it feels just a bit too convenient. Almost like Valentine either genuinely doesn't know, or he knows far more than he's willing to risk revealing. And this raises the question of whether Josslyn is even asking the right question. Because maybe the real issue isn't is Faison alive, but rather who benefits from people believing he might be. That's where Cullum enters the picture, and things start to shift in a much darker direction. The detail about the book and the cigars is not random. One interesting detail is how specific those items are. These aren't vague references, they're deeply personal markers tied to Faison. It seems like someone wants that connection to exist, almost like they're planting a psychological anchor. And I have to wonder, is this evidence of Faison's presence or evidence of manipulation? Because if you think about it, those objects don't prove anything on their own, but they do create a narrative that could easily influence someone already in a fragile mental state, which brings us to Anna. Now this is where, in my opinion, the story becomes far more unsettling. No one is allowed to see Anna, not even Emma. And we're told it's for her own good that isolation is necessary for treatment. But something about this doesn't quite add up. Because in most cases, completely cutting off a patient from loved ones isn't about healing, it's about control. There's something subtle about that justification. It sounds logical on the surface, but when you look closer, it creates the perfect condition for something to go unchecked. And that's exactly why I think Josslyn doesn't believe it. Her instinct to question the situation feels important. Because narratively, Josslyn stepping into this role, someone who refuses to accept the official explanation, positions her as the audience's lens into the truth. So when she teams up with Emma, it's not just about curiosity, it's about challenging a system that might be hiding something. And if they do break into that facility, that's where everything could change. Because the image of Anna being restrained, drugged, and possibly hallucinating it shifts the entire storyline, suddenly this isn't about mental illness, it's about forced perception. What makes this particularly interesting is the possibility that Anna's condition might not be organic at all. It could be induced, which means every vision, every fear, every belief Anna has had about Faison being alive might not be her own conclusion. It might be something implanted. And if that's true, then we're not looking at a psychological breakdown, we're looking at psychological warfare. Now, here's where the cause and effect chain becomes really important. If Anna was made to believe Faison is alive, then someone needed her to believe that. And if someone needed that belief to exist, then it serves a larger purpose. So who benefits? Cullum is an obvious candidate. But then we also have Sidwell, Pascal, and possibly even Nathan or whoever is posing as him. And this is where the story gets even more layered. Because Anna potentially holding evidence changes everything. It suggests that at some point before being fully subdued, she figured something out. Something significant enough that multiple people would want her silenced. And I keep coming back to this thought. What if Anna isn't being hidden because she's unstable, but because she's dangerous to them? That flips the entire narrative. Now, Josslyn and Emma potentially rescuing Anna becomes more than a heroic act. It becomes a disruption of a carefully maintained illusion. And here's where I think the story might be heading, though nothing is guaranteed. If Anna is removed from that environment, if the drugs stop, then her clarity could return, slowly, piece by piece. And when that happens, the truth might not come out all at once. It could emerge in fragments. Fragments that Josslyn has to piece together. This creates a really compelling dynamic. Josslyn as the investigator, Emma as the emotional anchor, and Anna as the key witness whose memory itself has been compromised. And that's where the hidden motive mapping becomes crucial. Because if multiple people were involved in Anna's captivity, then this isn't just a single villain plot, it's a coordinated effort. Cullum, Sidwell, Pascal, possibly Nathan. But Nathan is where things get especially complicated. The idea that Nathan might not be Nathan, that he could actually be Cassius, introduces a whole new layer of identity deception. And it makes me wonder if the Phazon presence we're seeing isn't Phazon at all, but a constructed persona being carried out by someone else. One possibility is that Cassius has been deliberately filling that role, creating just enough evidence to keep the myth alive, while operating under a completely different identity. And if Britt knows this, that adds emotional stakes. Because now it's not just about exposing a conspiracy, it's about exposing someone who may have chosen silence. And that kind of silence usually comes with a cost. This could suggest a deeper motive behind Britt's actions, maybe protection, maybe fear, or maybe something else entirely. And then there's the external factor, the potential departure of Ryan Pavey. I think it's important to approach that carefully. Nothing is confirmed within the story itself, but if the actor is stepping away, the narrative might need a way to write that character out. And in a storyline like this, there are really only a few options: exposure, imprisonment, or disappearance. If Cassius is revealed, then escape feels like a strong possibility, especially if the truth comes out all at once, triggered by Anna's testimony and Josslyn's investigation. But here's something I keep thinking about. What if the escape itself is part of the plan? Because if this network is as coordinated as it seems, then losing one piece might not collapse the entire structure. It might just shift the focus. Which brings us back to Josslyn. She's stepping into something much bigger than she realizes. At first, it looked like a personal investigation. Now it feels like she's uncovering a system designed to manipulate perception, control narratives, and eliminate threats quietly. And the more she pushes, the more dangerous it becomes. Because if Anna was silenced for what she knew, then Josslyn could be next for what she's about to discover. And that's where I think the real tension lies. Not in whether Phazon is alive, but in whether the truth can survive long enough to be revealed. So now I'm curious, what do you think? Am I the only one who feels like this entire storyline is less about one villain and more about a network operating in the shadows? And if Josslyn does uncover everything, will it actually bring justice? Or just expose how deep this really goes? Because right now, it feels like we're only seeing part of the picture, and the rest might be far more unsettling than anyone expects. This analysis is based on current story developments and remains a speculative interpretation, not a confirmed outcome.